Hi, this is John. In this IT Taster video, I'm going to show you how to install and configure DHCP with Windows Server 2008 R2. Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, or DHCP, enables us to assign IP addresses and network configuration settings to client workstations and devices automatically. This is essential when working with larger networks because manually assigning IP addresses soon becomes very difficult to manage. DHCP solves the problem. Before I install and configure DHCP, I want to quickly show you what's going on behind the scenes. Here's a basic overview of how DHCP works. The client PC on the left hand side is configured to obtain an IP address from DHCP. The first thing the client PC does is issue a DHCP discovery broadcast to find any DHCP servers. The DHCP server responds with a DHCP offer of an available IP address. The client PC responds with a DHCP request. It asks for the IP address offered by the DHCP server. Finally, the server responds with a DHCP acknowledge. Now, providing the IP address requested is still available, the client PC gets confirmation it can use it. The client PC now has an IP address and is ready to communicate with other devices on the network. Okay, let's begin by installing DHCP. First, you need to click on Server Manager, click on Roles, click on Add Roles, click Next on the Before You Begin screen if you've still got it there, and put a tick next to DHCP Server. And click Next. This screen basically tells you what DHCP does. When you've had a read through, click Next. Okay, this Select Network Connection binding screen enables you to configure DHCP to service client devices on other IP networks or subnets, providing you have additional network adapters configured and connected to them. I've got just the one adapter and the one subnet, so I'm going to click Next. Here we're able to specify DNS settings that will be assigned to our client devices. However, notice the default DNS server 127001. This is what is known as the loopback address and basically means this machine, myself. Now, if this address is assigned to a client device, there will be a problem. Client devices need to contact the DNS server for DNS information, not look at themselves. So you need to change this to your DNS server's IP. And I'm going to click Validate to check this. Okay, you can also specify alternate DNS servers here as well. I don't have any, so I'm going to click Next. If you have a Wins server on your network, you can specify the IP address here. Wins is less common these days. It was the way pre-Windows 2000 operating systems resolved their NetBIOS names to IP addresses. We're not going to be using a Wins server, so click Next. Here we need to specify the range of IP addresses we want to assign to client devices. Now, I prefer to specify a range that doesn't include key devices like servers because this can cause serious IP conflicts. Now, you can alternatively exclude IP addresses within the DHCP scope, which I'll show you a little later on in the video. Now, my server's IP address is 10.0.0.2, so I'm going to create a simple scope which begins at 10.0.2.1 and ends at 10.0.254. And to do that, we need to click Add. We need to give the scope a name. I'm going to call my scope Scope 1. We need to put in the starting IP address of 10.0.2.1 and the ending IP address of 10.0.2.254. Now, notice the default lease time is 8 days. This is the amount of time client devices are able to use DHCP assigned IP addresses before they must reapply to use the address. If the address is not successfully renewed, it can be reassigned to another device. Now, the scope must be activated before it can be used, and as you can see here, DHCP supplies client devices with a subnet mask. We need to click OK and click Next. I'm not going to be working with IP version 6 in this video, so I'm going to choose Disable DHCP version 6 stateless mode and click Next. Now the DHCP server must be authorized before it can be used. This is to prevent unknown DHCP servers being added to the network and causing problems. So all we need to do here is click Next. Here we get a summary of our DHCP server configuration, which we can print or save, and once that's done we can click Install. DHCP is now successfully installed, so I'm going to close the wizard and reboot the server. Okay, the server's now rebooted and I've logged back in. So we now need to go back into Server Manager. We need to expand roles, expand DHCP server, expand our server and expand IP version 4. And here you'll see the scope we defined. If we expand that and click on the address pool, we can see our IP addresses here. Now I mentioned earlier that we can exclude IP addresses from being given out by DHCP, and we do that by right clicking address pool and choosing new exclusion range. Okay, let's exclude the first 10 IP addresses in our address pool. So the first IP address I'm going to put in is 10.0.2.1, and the ending IP address is going to be 10.0.2.10. Click Add and close. Now address leases will show you the devices which are currently leasing IP addresses on the network. As you can see at the moment we don't have any. Reservations, this enables you to reserve a specific IP address for a device by providing its MAC address. Scope options allows us to specify additional network configuration settings to our client devices. And if you remember, we defined our DNS servers and domain name earlier. Now notice we've got scope options and server options. Server options apply to all scopes, and scope options apply to the scope only. So for example, if we want to assign an IP address of a router to our client devices, we need to right click Scope Options, click Configure Options, put a tick next to 003 router, and put in an IP address of 10.0.0.1 in this case. Click Add and OK, and we've defined another scope option to assign to our clients. Okay, I've logged on to a different test server and I've configured the network adapter to obtain an IP address from DHCP. So I'm going to go to a command prompt and I'm going to type in ipconfig/all. Now you can see here, there's our DHCP server 10.0.0.2. Our machine has obtained an IP address of 10.0.2.11. If you remember, we excluded the first 10 IP addresses. It's got a subnet mask from DHCP. There's our router that we assigned, 10.0.0.1, and there's our DNS server of 10.0.0.2. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go back to our DHCP server. Okay, we're now back on the DHCP server, and there was just one last thing I wanted to show you. If we right click on our address leases and do a quick refresh and click on address leases, you can see there's our server that we assigned our IP address to, and it also shows you when the lease is going to expire. Okay, I hope this tutorial has been helpful. Please subscribe to my channel, and thanks very much for watching.